Well, it's not good news, and it's not beneficial to his descendants. The fact that neither Jesus nor Socrates wrote anything down, and it was on the passion of their followers that they were able to transfer their message into posterity. But here, an opportunity is different. We can both utilize the power of literal media, of print media, and electrical distribution. Delaying gratification and impulse control. These are translations. These are major characters. These are major achievement in the spiritual, religious sphere, because the character is driving for is delay of self-gratification and self-control. One is the disciples quoting that, and then this is the central problem, that man does the things that he does not want to, and he does not do the things that he wants. This cognitive dissonance, this constant cognitive dissonance is attributable to his delay or argument for his retardation. It's not clear exactly what man parameters are, and it's not granted or guaranteed that he moves towards it. It's not good news for anyone without self-gratification in the face of temptation, and it usually leads on to acts that they are not they are not wishing to be. And what does that mean, not wishing to be? How come there are things that are not wished to be, but yet still find their self in the world? And I believe this is an orchestration issue. It's a problem of lack of orchestration. It can be solved with orchestration. I remember speaking yesterday of the sustenance of the world that's required to house the let's call it explosiveness of the human potential. The fact that they are one set of organism that has a certain orientation to the rest of the world, the rest of creation. And they're speaking that the containers of the contained exploration, the part that surrounds it has to be of a different substance than what occurs within it, by virtue of the contrast that you're on opposite sides, or do you have different and independent purposes. So then what that sustenance should be made of, you should carry a different act to it, is what was remembered yesterday. But the conversation, which was not suitable for public uploading, it was scrapped, because it was scrapped for other valuable intact argument that it had in its midst. And so it just became a junkyard where we can go into to bring back certain ideas from the larger pool of rants that just did not make its way into standards, did not make its way into the final cut, or in the post or after edit, because knowing already the elusiveness of the character, to not create any more difficulty on the side of the hypothetical audience, to not create any more than is necessary, just enough, but by saying the truth clear enough that in all its elements, in all its aspects, it be understood. And that's the line that we're following. Self-gratification and impulse control are the things that each character is after, and all the characters are after. Meaning, when you call characters, it's always a one to another. The world only exists in that mode. But saying characters brings out their individuality in a way that is helpful, in a way that perhaps isn't. It only is serving as a part, because it's doing the job to reveal the definition of quality when it manifests itself in a person. And what does that mean? Have anyone taking more time than the normal time to accept the definition of a character, and how characterization and characterism goes on. Self-gratification, these traits and impulse control, these traits are disciplinary. They are the driver of the saints, and they are not to the unambitious. The motivation that gets one to turn out from temptation, to draw towards not even the opposite, being immediately the kingdom, but at developing a fully functioning person will have to give way to this other side of the world, and to this other side of the world that is acceptable and representable. I mean, there are times where this is only the subject matter, and how far one could go into it. It's I believe it's infinite, and it appears infinite because there cannot be an end to self-development and character development, or character design. There cannot be an end to it, because there's always in existence a part that is unpolished, that is not yet up to par with other contendants in the measurement environment of different ways of controlling the self. Well, then this is more packaged. This is more units to volumize the argument, in a way creating more area for itself when the subject is under discourse. Because with self-control and what it represents for every person, for each person, it's the ability now for free manifestations. But these are classified manifestation, and they are not free. In that way, the unwilled agent is not free. They are meandered by the force of nature. What is this a pride issue? Why does there need to be a counter position to impulse? Why is that so? Because it's evident, it's self-evident that is a slippery slope not to have this in one's arsenal, not to have this ability in one's arsenal. And because it's a trick that will not only delay gratification, but redirect the agent, redirect them somewhere else that they need to go, somewhere else that they need to face. It's clear, internal within most is the clear espousing from the logos of what is going right, what is going wrong, what can one stop doing, and immediately start to raise something about themselves. Not add the noun, but at least just leave it at the verb, where to raise something out. But what is this thing that's being raised out? And then giving it this more generic name of a thing, and knowing that it's not fully described yet. What is this thing, and how does this rise or raising of a thing? What does it do? What is its purpose? What does it serve? And there are moments where man is capable to explain this or have the answer to this in great detail. And there are moments when he hides from it, similarly as Adam hides from God. What that is this is an internal manifestation, but being written out as a story, like all things should acclaim that wishes to transform man's character. When is hiding from God, when Adam is hiding from God, it's the same feeling of shame, not being able to put on camera. It doesn't want to be seen. That is just an eye, and then that's a shaming of it. That's look upon, and that's judgment. Well, of course, if the eye was surrounded by others of different profiles, it means something different. But if it's an eye by someone else that in whose ontological category it's of the type just suitable to create this internal dynamic of guilt and shame, then there is the profile that is designated that effect. It is the profile that is designated that effect, and it is categorized in this way. One's filing of where and who goes where. These things are categorized in the distribution of factors that are affecting decision making. The distributions that are affecting decision making, or the formula that's affecting decision making, the formula, the variables that are playing in it. And then you might see in these formulas and how they are categorized, how they are ordered, how they are arranged, how they are tabulated, and call it in the circuit of this particular participatory and internal act of decision making and choice. And then it gets down to this, because it's the choice and the moment change and rechange lean, or switching leans, or contrasting between and two different options. I mean, in this murky area, unless one has already pre-established what will be the constant answer in this situation, or how dynamic varies from time to time, and it decides how they move in them, and then you can still connecting it with the internal dynamic that resembles Adam and Adam's hiding, or dodging, yes, or Adam dodging of the questioning of God. And also that same dodging shows up when he replies to God, "Am I my brother's keeper?" There is this way, because the character of the self must demonize its adversary. Because vice must defend itself. This is the connection with ego and vice, and how they are united to create a defense mechanism in situations where it is very obvious. If there were, you could see it. It's very obvious to the truth, but they create discrepancies in it. They create call them fracture imperfection. They create this imperfection in it by rationing onto it the most potent argument it can generate, which is one of these things. The world means something else, but they do not espouse this truth to their loved ones, because they wish that their loved ones would carry on the baton, will carry that the hope that their progeny or their kin will carry on the baton, and then they can sustain improvement on it. But it is themselves first that must display this improvement for there to be any, because if it should be done right, it should be done right by oneself. There's never a wiggle room to alleviate thinking from immediate action, because thinking immediate action is always in most cases necessary when you're dealing of the slow glacial swaying of man to change. For a person to change, it's a great realignment of call it a chemical reaction. It's a very slow chemical reaction, and the threshold energy is decided by one's nature and one's nurture, and the output energy transforms one's nature, and they transform one's in nurture, because nature is the prerequisite that determines how this reaction plays out. it gets down to molecules, because there is a certain, if you were to distill, man, there is all the way down, when you separate him from the quickware or the asphyst, thinking of it as a thinking mist fluid, that the electrical inside of it, the fluidity of thinking or thought and connections, and the neural correlation to that. But in the line that connects to it, it is separate from molecules. But molecules are are at the bottom of electricity, and how sodium atoms are affect in one's neural interaction. I mean, this is a whole chemical story, just isolating sodium only to point out how even to think of what one is ingesting, how also that is influencing how far they can operate mentally, because man is a dimmer as well. He can operate at optimal performance, and he can be dimmed down from optimal performance. This can be derailed by what he's educated, what he's fed, what he believes, and what what his motives are. There are factors that are playing with this on this gradation scale, or this oscillation, and there are moments of apex performance, and there are moments that are subpar, and they are not standard. They're unbecoming these lower subpar performance or exertions or decision making. But all this is in the quest of addressing and converging the divergence, the distances, of filling out the gaps. That's what it's about. So that's the way of looking at man from considering the molecular scale. At the molecular scale, he passes this threshold because before he gets to his ontological, experiential, epistemological and perception of the world, where he's a form in a body. Where he's a form in her body, and he has recognition of his place in a home, of his place in a profession, of his place as any other title that he could be assigned. And then more this and to explain the world in its full form. All right, what does it become from? It's made at its core and its mantle and its crust. What else is about it? It's levitating in space. It has a gravitational pull onto a star that began from the Big Bang. It exploding out lithium, helium, and hydrogen. And then after this Big Bang, atoms become to form by protons bombarding into them. Now this same process can be replicated in particle accelerators to create matter from previous matter. So this is the beginning of the world, and from one perspective. Another is that man is made, the world is made, but man is remade at a different time in its chronological ascension. That's describing this one aspect of the world, of the planet on a sphere around the sun. What is going on at the conscious level of an individual on one of their continent? The continents are one united landmass, and they fractionated to create different climate zones and different biosphere on different parts of the world, from temperate to tropical to the Arctic and Antarctic. It creates different climates, and it decides ecosystems, and ecosystems decide the types of life forms that flourish in these environments. And this is another world, but if it pushes from there, where one can find themselves in World War I, they can find themselves going out to battle their core characters because of an assassination of an Austrian prince. This is another way of looking at it. Or you can look at it now in more temporary terms, and then we'll leave it up to those who are visiting concerts of pop stars. I mean, what is the world, and what are you speaking about in it? What does it mean to be born in a culture you had no hand in designing? What does it mean to be made of the collective intelligence and competence of nucleated cells? What are these facts you're providing? This is the design was thrown into the world, and I'm now having a comprehension of it from being a tabula rasa. But this tabula rasa is limited in its occupancy by the conscription of the genome. What is the genome? What is the genome? Eventually, remember this bombardment remember when we spoke of the beginning of the bombardment of protons? Yes, they come in later and forget how Newton is explaining it in orbits and in the Principia, what he's describing about not light of optics, or when he's describing about force and mass and acceleration, where he's formalizing equations to describe the physical aspects of the world. Now think of this bombardment of protons, and now carry it down to Darwin, and carry it to Wallace, and what he's doing in the Polynesian archipelago, what Darwin is doing in the Galapagos. What are they trying to figure out about it? How species form from not in the way it was described in the religious literature, but it's that the species form from one common ancestor. Not each of them was made uniquely. Well, they are unique by the speciation, by speciation, but they also trace down themselves to a common ancestor, and that makes gradual change over the world. But now bring it back to still this young fellow that's now going over to his neighbors in Italy to tear down their recent construction project that they worked so hard to build, simply because a fellow in Austria was assassinated, and rivals couldn't bring to terms agreements in that immediate moment. But this agreement has to be made because the world must subsume its area of immune detection. So there's a disorder in the world. It has its time, it has its moment, and it has its end and its resolution. But this is a poor process. But at the same time, don't rush it yet. Still think of these protons that are bombarding, that have been that have been playing the game of nature for billions of years. Well, then where else does it go? What else becomes of it? At a certain rate, you just run out of fuel and you're now just in orbit because you've rocketed out of the mine. You can take a meta view on it. This is a literal process that is achievable to sort of describe man in his place, in his automobile, in his two-cylinder internal combustion engine that is probably running not too rich and not too lean. He's trying to get it in that sweet spot. He's trying to have his first and second gears and third gears all synchronized, so that he can transfer his power down to his limited slip differential. He's trying to figure out the way to have it do something, to have it operate, because it has this quality about itself. Well, that quality about itself is what gives impetus to any discipline that wishes to deal and deep down into the acts of the world. And this too is permission for everyone else who wishes to have a hand in the world that they are a part of, and to redesign it to your specifications, redesign it to your dimensions. The world is plastic, so when it starts to give out free lunches, you can use this plastic to mold in concreteness your imagination. This is an attribute of the world. It is indifferent to itself. Most of its imaging are drawn from the X towards it, because it has no other way of receiving it. Think of also the subserver. Now imagine all this proton bombardment, or also imagine it as man being recreated from a previous ancestor, still in this neutral ground of jostling between both kinds of truth. Because remember, we were saying that from these texts, we were saying, speaking of the hiding of nature, this is still playing with the creation. When we're speaking of sodium, it is still playing with the creation of it. All the parts of it, the effects of it, can be germinated in from present data. It doesn't always have to be pushed from the backwards vector of archival repository. One can generate intuitions about the world simply because they are a product of it. So its fingerprints and its patterns are installed in it. Even the principles that he thinks are installed in the principles that explain his anatomy, that explains his physiology. If you're looking at the facts, how can it not? It's the next thing to say. How can it not? Because it's only made of this thing. So when one is self-reflecting with a most hands-on natural philosophical approach, like sciences, archaeology, or biophysics, anything that you're dealing with, the physical stuff, the physical properties of the world, you become to grasp this in pattern. If we start dealing with detail and sort of grab the gestalt, there will be a similarity between each scientific discipline, because from the gestalt you see it in its forms. We've spoken other times of now this relation between forms and how there is the larger game being played, and what is the manifestations of these moves that's being played by the forms. And now I'm trying to hold Subserver in mind so they can explain next to this line. However, if you contrast the moves in the forms with the arms race that are manifest in bacteria and plant, or in any other two computation, larynx and the larynx and the Siberian lynx. I mean, or not the larynx itself, or rabbits, or symbiotic relationships between algae and plankton, or any other endeavor that we have to, that it can be worked creatively when it's working in an altruistic manner. It can work like the tiger and so they call it trying to think of the cheetah and the antelope, but trying to find where you can see it down in the muscles of the animal, something that you're seeing that is developing, that is immediately sensible. So thinking that it will be easily comprehended that way. That when you're seeing it now in just speed and trickery, yes, okay, now the epiphany becomes easier to easily available. It's like, yes, it's clearly the work of the forms that are at play there. And then developments are going on, because there is only the world. It's competing with itself only in itself. So, but the competition, this arms race that goes on between education and catastrophe is happening at that molecular level of impulse control. It only gets to these big moments when it's on a mass scale. Of course, the high stake games are obviously on a mass scale. It's more titillating that way, because the world understands climaxes, heart raises, it understands fights, it understands bloodshares, and these things are calculated and they have their value, and they can be appraised. Imagine appraising catastrophes like Chernobyl, or anything else that that is just heartbroken, and you're immediately disheartened by perceiving. And all these moments have their appraisal in the thought of the dynamics of the world, because this is happening on the third planet from the sun. That's one way of trying to dry out and sterilize the fact that you're dealing with, and then moving on towards it, and then taking on, as you try to parachute down into it, you have to take on the elements that are existing, because there's the only elements you're playing with. So you're playing out religions and beliefs and pet peeves, and perhaps an interest, but interest from nature. But in nurture, you are picking up these different titles, and that's how one crashes and one become assimilated. But reversing in thinking further back down the line, if one could think in the simple context of conversations, it is difficult to ask to question your interlocutor, or yes, in your interlocutor, or in a monologue forum, to ask the listener, could you now that we've been having this one-way discourse for 7 minutes, can you now begin from time 7 and recount to me in reverse where we started with, the tangents that we broke off, how we branched off from one topic to another? What was the tree of all of this speaking? What was it? Can you recount that? It's difficult to recount it back, but in recounting back is the second half of the piston movement to get this exhaust stroke, or to get this power stroke that now branches one back into meta thinking. By saying meta thinking, now we're seeing as far objectively that is attributable, not achievable. Sorry, that is far back as achievable, because it has to be something achievable about the way we're able to comprehend and explain it. The comprehensive language spoke about that, or the comprehensions of reality. But by being able to explain the world in these terms, comfortably, acceptably, believably, then it's also evident just how clear one's view is, how clear one is holding the image that is appearing to all. I mean, the tales of man and the things that are problematic for man are solvable, but imbued in him, even in his ability to reason a solution, is the meddling of nature, not to immediately allow the solution to be evident, or else man will have had the epiphany from the beginning. It prefers and it's portrayed this preference. It's preferred the attractions of events that are also volatile, and because these things are truth in the end, in the final analysis of, let's call it, a clash between prides of panther leos. After that, the end state, it tells a story. It has a tale to it. It has a sign. It means something to the audience that is now all a part of the kingdom. I mean, these things are immediately interpretable in, well, use an apex animal as an example, but it's characteristic of any animal group. You could watch it manifest between clans of hyenas. I mean, it's everywhere. So now even think back to the similarity between the gestalt of each scientific discipline to decipher an aspect of the world, from what it is as a planet, as a rock, for what it is as a biosphere, as a biology, for what it is as a terrestrial characterization, for what it is from the individual having personal space, living in a prey predator scenario. I mean, from all these angles of attack, how they all layer, how they all formulated. Is there time taken to actually formulate them? And then after this process is taken, this process is done, when this process is completed, what is the end result? What is taken out of it? What's so good about it? The only thing that's good about it is that it says that, and these are a set of cards. This is a classification. Well, this is an assortment of events. Classify them and make something of them. Well, okay, this is an assortment of events. Classify them, take something of them. It's like going into a room one has never been in before and taking inventory of facts. But what one has, being a novice, is the ability to adapt, the ability to become what it wasn't before, because that is what is bringing out what it wasn't before. When one comes in and